You take the numbers, present it to somebody and say, here's the numbers. What does that look like to you? Does it look good or bad? And if they don't know that it's bad, that's part of the problem. If they do know it's bad, you say, okay, great. What are you going to do to change it? The only reason he didn't instantly know how to solve every single problem is because it takes his eyes time to look at a page. He's just that good.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Corey Williams, the general manager of the Bellingham location for Augusta Lawn Care and Augusta Nation. Welcome to the podcast, Corey. I appreciate you jumping on with me.
Hello. Yeah, very cool to be here. Very cool to be more involved with the community. Hope everybody watching is having a good day so far.
So, Corey and I actually met at Landscape Summit. Was that last year?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I think it was in October.
Yeah. And what's crazy too is like, I don't know the group or whatnot, but I just like, obviously somehow we were hanging out with a couple of people and then I was hanging out with a couple of people and then you were there. And then I was like, oh snap, Corey's the general manager of the Bellingham location, which is the main one. So I'm like, all right, dude, I got to ask this guy 101 questions about like what he's doing, how he's doing it, like just everything. And like, once I got to talk to you, I was like, all right, this dude's on a different level. Because the way that you were talking was not talking as if you're just like a regular employee. Like you were talking as if you owned that location and you were talking about like customer acquisition costs and raising prices, managing a team, and like all of these like in-depth thoughts of like running a location to where like a normal team member is typically just like, yeah, I'm coming to clock in and clock out, right? Like sometimes, you know, yeah, I was very, very impressed. In fact, when I got back from Landscape Summit, I told Larissa, my wife, I was like, I don't know what they're doing at Augusta over there, but they're training their team way better than we are, because like he was talking to me like I was talking to another business owner. I was very, very impressed. So I think that's your nature though. I think you enjoy learning and like going the extra mile. And that's probably why you're the GM of the Bellingham location. So
thanks, man.
Yeah, I wanted to share that with you because I was very impressed when I first met you. I was like, this dude's smart. Like he's going places for sure. So
thanks, man. Well, I'll tell you this much is that a lot has definitely changed since then. Now that we've gone through, we went through winter, that was my first winter managing the location. And now we've gone through spring and we're kind of in the heat of summer over here. So much is different. My thoughts on things are so different. And, then I was talking about like at that time when we were at the conference, I was kind of ruminating all these ideas that I had asked Mike questions about. I have access to Lee Park, who's the franchise salesman for the franchise. And so I was asking questions to all of them and like, what do we do about this? And what about this? And like, we focus on winter services in this way. And like, then it was all speculation. But now that we've gone through it, it's a totally different ballgame. It's such an interesting thing to like look back and remember, like we were talking about that stuff. We were talking about price races. We did actually raise our prices here too. I'd love to share that with you. Yeah, conference was great.
So like, what do you think? I guess maybe give us a quick snapshot on where you're at currently. Like, how many number of trucks do you have at the location? How many employees like directly report to you? Mm-hmm. And then like, what do you think you're projected to do probably annually this year?
There's 14 trucks. I have 3 that are just project setups, and then the rest are all mowing. So our labor capacity is about 660 hours a week, assuming every person does 30. Projected revenue, we're going to do maybe about $1 million this year. And what was the other question?
How many employees directly report? Like,
right.
Do you
so manage? Currently we have 12. Currently we have 12 employees.
Wow. Dude, that's pretty astonishing because most managers can effectively manage 8 people. Oh. A great manager can manage up to 10, and you're doing 12.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So you are in the top tier, my friend. Which is why I wanted to have you on, because you're a boatload of knowledge and I feel like you're going to hopefully bring great value to everybody. So that's awesome, man. I wanted to, and we're just going to free flow this, but so you said, so obviously 30 budget hours is like the goal for the team. Do you find like that you ever have, like, is there anybody, I mean, you guys don't have like stringent things on like time off requests, like as long as they let you know like in advance, right? Like,
yeah.
Do you ever have like team members that consistently like aren't hitting that 30 budgeted hours? Is like 25 okay? Or like if they're continually hitting like 20, are you like having a conversation like, hey man, like we need more production? Or do you guys even do part-time people?
Yeah. So part-time, I would say that I have had that, and I have also, like in the current season I'm in, I don't have that. But I've had employees who were on my team like that previously last year, and then I have people this year who are not pulling enough weight in that category. We used to do part time. I personally have made like the choice not to do part time, at least maybe probably until we scale larger and we can sustain, like 25 to 30 people. Then I'd be willing to have a part time worker because, when you have that many people on your list, you assume 6 people call out randomly a week. Well, all of a sudden you've got 6, 7 guys worth of work left. Okay, I need some part timers. I need somebody to come and pick up all this extra work. But like at the stage of the business that we are in right now, I don't do part time. I like to be able to have a little more like consistency and sort of routine with the crew. And so when somebody's like working maybe Monday, Tuesdays, and then they're off for a big weekend, they're not in the groove of it. They're not in the rhythm. And then one thing I think that you and I kind of intuitively have that we don't see in crew members is like the hunger for this thing we have to succeed. Like for a lot of people, and even for me when I first started working here, it's work, and that's fine. It can stay as work, but there's a difference in hunger, I think. And it's very hard to convey that or lead people with your own hunger when they work part-time and they're only there like every once in a while and they've got another job or something like that. It's harder for team culture, in my opinion.
So most of yours are full-time, which ours is too. It's just easier by the time you add them to auto insurance and all that stuff, and then managing the yellow slips, like if they only work on Mondays or Tuesdays and then they get a slip, it's like somebody's always having to do their slip, which sometimes kind of poses a problem. But like, is your team consistently like getting above 25, roughly around that 30-hour budgeted mark? Like, do you hold that against them? Or like, if you have team members that are like, because that would be what, 5 days a week, 6 budgeted hours. It's like, well, what if they go home early a couple times a week because they couldn't finish the route? I mean, are you having them like forcing them to come in on Saturday? Are you kind of just shifting that stuff over to a different crew? Like, I guess, like, how lenient are you with that type of stuff?
I'd like to come back to the budgeted hour part of it at the end. I think that I'll summarize it now, is that for us and for everybody watching, is that the responses that I would take to all of these circumstances is dependent on whether or not budgeted hours is perfect. Like, my budgeted hours are exactly where they need to be. I'm charging the exact amount that everything comes out to, where all my expenses, my payroll, my pay, everything's clean. And then we have exactly this much profit. That has to be dialed. Like, if budgeted hours are genuinely under, that's a different thing. I like projects, for example, that's something that then becomes my fault and not the crew's. Right now, if you could believe it, everybody on my team is doing about 10 to 12 a day. Summer is great. They're just flying through jobs. And then we did our price increase recently. This was the first time we raised prices at the Bellingham Augusta location in 3 years. So we had people who were, paying like $26 a cut who went up to, 45. And our minimum used to be $40 a cut for a half-hour job, and they got raised to 52. We raised prices $12, $18. I took the mic and I was like, Mike, if we're going to raise prices and switch out growth mode, we're going bigger, we're going home. This is a Bellingham location. We gotta put our money where our mouth is. Where Mike is talking all the time about like price raises will save your business, it will solve all your problems. We're gonna put our money where our mouth is. We're raising prices 28%, man, and it worked. It worked. I had 330 clients at the time. We lost 30 to date, and it's been 7 weeks since then because of the price increase. So I've gained like another 15, 20 as well. So overall I've had a net loss of less than 10%, and I'm making like 20,000 extra revenue, 20,000, on the bottom line or in profit just because of the price increase. No extra budgeted hours, nothing.
Dude, that is insane. So what were you charging per hour before it, and then what did you raise it to, like, on average?
We used to be charging $80 an hour for mowing services and $90 for projects. Funnily enough, I've lowered the project rate to $80 an hour, but I've increased mowing to $100. Originally, we were going to increase it to $90, but the flat price increase that we did was so much that we have to make it $100 in order to balance everything else out when new people join in. And going back to like, is crew hitting budgeted hours and whatnot? When we did this price increase, we raised the overall budgeted hours on something. So something would have gone from 30 minutes to 42 or 46, I think. And so the crew has more time. They're making more money. Everybody's happy. We've rewarded them for spring rush and pushing through that, because our springs here are a lot more brutal overall, and it really mellows out the rest of the year. But they're hitting that 10 to 12 metric, 10 to 12 budget hours a day consistently. When it comes to like people not hitting budgeted hours, if they're like doing under 25 during the spring rush for us, where it grows about 8 to 10 inches every week, that's a little bit of a different story. But when like you or anybody who's like done the work, or the, you from a leadership perspective, the criteria and how well an average or even like a B player could perform, it's a pretty clear indicator that something else is going on, because people who are failing but don't want to fail make it very clear they know they're failing. They'll come into the office like, hey, I couldn't get my route done today. Can I work like late tomorrow? I've got an appointment at 5. I have to go to my dentist, or my mom is sick, or whatever it is. They make it very clear that they know that they're not measuring to where you want them to be. They're managing themselves for you. And so people who don't do that and don't step up, that's, in my opinion, both things are equally informing. People who show ownership of themselves and people who don't express that ownership, that's the exact same message, but 2 different directions.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that. That's a good mindset about it. So when you rolled this, I wanted to go back slightly to the price increase. When you rolled this out, how did you roll it out? Did you just send out an email? Did you send out a text? Just be like, hey, customers, we're raising prices. Here's why: inflation. We got to provide good quality service. We don't want to go out of business. And then this is your new price? Or did you say like, hey, we're going to raise your price by $8 per cut? Like, what was that type of message? And then how did you like handle that rollout?
Yeah. So there's 3 main components to it. Is 1, the email itself. We just sent an email. We explained like, this is why we're doing it. We have not done this for so long. Gas is up, insurance, vehicle costs. You go down the list of problems nowadays. We need to raise our prices. And we just put on it, we are raising your price an extra $12 per weekly cut, an extra $18 for every 2 weeks. We sent that out to everybody. Component number 2 is I discussed it with Mike Andes. He verified it. He sent it to our command center team, because it's his location. You really wanted to make sure it was right. And we sent it to the Augusta Lawn Care Services Command Center, and they processed all of it for me. They updated the pricing on everybody. They sent the email out, and they increased the budgeted hours on the properties for the crew to increase their compensation. The real work for me was the aftermath of it, but it's a very good thing, because when you raise prices, surprise, people are going to be upset. What I got out of it is everybody who canceled finally gave me some honest feedback about my service and the work that we're doing. People who cancel for price will make it very clear, like, hey, I actually really liked your service. I can't afford it. And some people are pissed off from that angle. And it's like, well, I can't afford this and it's your fault. But a lot of people who are good natured or well intending, they're treating it fairly. They understand that we're being fair, and they want to respond in a fair way. And they say, I can't afford it. Thank you for your service, but I can't work with you guys anymore. But the people who cancel for quality reasons, or people who would have canceled for quality reasons, the price increase was their last straw. And so what this gave me was a lot of really good actual feedback about how the service was, which I could then use to talk to my team about. Like, hey guys, while I deal with all of these angry emails, here's what you guys need to work on. And once this is good, theoretically, everything will be great. Because even people who didn't cancel still replied to that email and said, hey, thanks for this. I just want to let you guys know, like, you missed something, or that kind of stuff. People started clarifying the issues. And so what that gave me the opportunity to do was erase the problems, so that everybody who stayed and still sees value in our service is now guaranteed they're getting a perfect service and everything's hunky-dory.
Dude, that's amazing. Like that, I'm talking to Larissa about like us raising potentially prices next year at our main location, and I'm fired up about it. Like the fact that you're making 20,000 more bottom line each month,
Right.
and that goes directly to profit, right? Like it's amazing. And you got the same crew, same trucks, and yeah, I love it, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. I really appreciate you sharing that with me. So I've got a couple other things here. So like I wanted to ask you, so like obviously you worked with Mike like when you were first really becoming like the general manager. Obviously you've had multiple conversations with him, coaching, stuff like that. What do you think makes Mike such an effective leader for working for him? Like, what do you think his maybe 3, like if you had to say his 3 biggest attributes on why that makes him such a good leader?
In terms of definitely what makes Mike a good employer, and like what makes him so effective at it. I think number 1 is that he did it himself. He did all the work himself, and he knows what needs to be done. For people watching, people who don't know his story very, very deeply, he started from zero. He started just pushing his own lawnmower in his dad's truck. And I tell people this when I'm hiring. It's like, this is who we work for. And we want people to join and see who Mike Andes is and build themselves up. He started just out of his dad's truck. You know, he's severely allergic to grass. And then he built a location up to 100,000. And then he built it up to 200,000. He learned all the hard lessons about hiring and all the hard lessons about legal and insurance stuff. And then he built it to 500, and then he built it to 1 million, and then he learned how to do franchising. Now he's who we see, but he started from zero, and he knows every step of the way, not necessarily what you should be doing right, but he knows what's going to be hard. And so he anticipates that. He's very aware of that. And it's very, very helpful. That's number one. Number two is that he gives a lot of freedom. For him to succeed, he needs everybody else to have their stuff dialed in. And so what he'll do is just like, this is what we're going to do. Take this, handle it, deal with that. And while you do that, I'm going to go focus on building the franchise up. Or like right now, it's a lot about franchise sales and really bolstering our company, our franchise. And so for him to succeed in that, everybody else has to be, pulling their weight and whatnot. And seeing how hard he works, I think really inspires everybody. And it inspires them to figure out a problem on their own rather than just like, oh, Mike will work hard and he'll help me if I ask. Because he'll help if you ask. But his time is so valuable and so much better spent really like working on the things that he thinks would make life better for everybody involved. So that's number two. And then number three, I really think it's his passion for it. On the clock, off the clock, he's always in business. He's always doing business. He's always working on something. When he goes out to have like free time, he does runs and whatnot to, get some exercise, get some space of mind. He's still thinking about business and thinking about work and cooking up new ideas. Like pay for performance, he came up with on a jog. He came up with that, like he went up the mountain, came back down, it's like, I got a great idea. And the rest is history. And so he's always optimized. And so when you need something from him, or it's like he sees something that I'm doing that's inexperienced, or like I'm going down a line that leads towards a predictable like problem that will need a solution. He's been in so much of business, and now that he's doing the turnarounds, he's seen so much consistency across the industry firsthand. He knows immediately, this is what we should do. This is how we should solve it. I'll tell you this last piece about that is recently Mike and I came to the agreement that he should spend a little bit less time here at the Augusta Bellingham shop. He usually used to just come to do meetings with us and get to know Mike Crew so that he could still be involved with his team. And we recently agreed that he should be busy doing the stuff that's more important. But when he would come in, I'd give him a profit and loss statement. This is just my scorecards. I'd watch him look at it, and it was like, here you go, Mike. Okay, it like the only reason he didn't instantly know how to solve every single problem is because it takes his eyes time to look at a page. That's it. He's just that good, and he's always in the game.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful thing, and it's very inspiring. It makes, at least for me, it makes me very willing to just keep pushing.
Dude, that's awesome. So when he would come in, so are these like for weekly team meetings, or is it more like a monthly thing?
Yeah, so we used to do weekly team meetings. They were on Thursdays, and we do an optional. So what it was kind of set up as is it's a good way for him to kind of share knowledge and share information. This is something I haven't had a chance to talk to him about. But if anybody watches his YouTube shorts and he's driving, because I live in the same county and I know where he's going and when he's going basically to work, secret Mike Andes lore is that he goes to work. He and I will talk about a topic, and then he might mention it in one of those shorts. And so it's like while he's driving around, he's really thinking about like, this is something I want to share with people, or this is a thought that I want to express. And he would share those thoughts like with my team and kind of spread knowledge and help me bolster the team up and get them more motivated to get educated, learn about leadership, extreme ownership, all that kind of stuff. And it was also a really good way for me to see like who on the team is engaged and is interested in having a half-hour meeting with Mike Andes every week.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was really nice. But yeah, like we did tone that back. And I'm very happy that we did, because it gives me a lot of opportunity to, now the crew will like seek knowledge from me. And I'm like, oh, I actually don't know how to answer that. I better like learn something from Mike. I'm now a student again because I don't have access right away.
Right. Yeah, dude, that's awesome. And I think that's awesome too now, because like you're getting that full ownership of it now. I mean, you're taking the reins over the Bellingham location now, So like for the weekly kind of like check-ins, right? Like what type of stuff would would he like go over with you to just make sure like he has a pulse on the business, he understands like things are healthy there? Obviously you said like P&Ls, like are you going through that each week? Is it a monthly thing? And then like I guess what other kind of like maybe KPIs are you guys like looking at when he's there to just make sure things are running smoothly?
We would go through P&Ls monthly after after the last month and whatnot. We look at that, and he would we'd go through it with the crew so that they could like see Mike is giving me feedback in front of the team, like here's what we need to do, here's where we need to take the business. And most of what we would talk about is more often than not kind of short-term pivots. So for example, it's starting to warm up. Where should we start sending this kind of marketing thing? Or do you think it's okay to start raising our marketing spend based off of, we've raised our prices, we're going to have a little bit more profit in the bank. Therefore, we could put that back into advertising, stuff like that. We look at customer acquisition cost usually. One thing I would share is that it's never really about team culture or like performance of employees. One thing I think I've learned by watching him is that you can't manage somebody else's way, if that makes sense. So like the way you lead your own teams is going to be different than the way I would lead my teams. And let's say, for example, you were my owner, I was your general manager. It's like I could never lead the way you lead. I have to make my leadership way work, and I have to be the one to like get better. I can't just like read off a scorecard and like these are the questions. Like this is a Q&A that you've prepared for me. Answer these the way that it's written. Like when situations come up or people behave in certain ways and two unique people interact, you've got to do it your way. And he is totally hands off with that. He doesn't say like, this is where I want like people's minds to be, or I don't like this person, or because they're not working hard enough. It's just like, I've hired them. It's my responsibility to lead them and determine whether or not they're a good fit. And if they're not a good fit, they wrecked 10 trucks, then I get the talking. That's my problem.
Yeah, that's super interesting because like for our second location, we have a general manager, and we're going through that. Obviously, at the main location, my wife is the general manager. So like we've been working together for like 5 years now. So like she knows like the mindset of things, right? But like with a new GM, hey, if you got a guy showing up late 2-3 times a week, like is that the type of standard like you're gonna want for your organization? Like it's up to you. It's like if you want to tolerate that type of stuff, go ahead. If not, like if I was running it, I wouldn't be tolerating that, right? So it's like it's a really weird line as like me stepping into more of like managing managers of like I want to help them, but I don't want to micromanage them, but I want to give them the freedom. And it's this really weird dichotomy, man. I'm still trying to figure it out. That's why I was really asking about like the way that Mike handles things. Cause it's like, when I sit down and I have somewhat of like a GM scorecard that I've kind of built, right? It's like, hey, what's your close ratio? How many budgeted hours do you have on the schedule? Like how many weeks booked out? Like we go through that each week. Like how many yellow slips did we go through last week? Right. Like we go through that stuff to make sure like they're on track. But like, I guess when you look at their career efficiency and it's like, let's just say it's like 50% or 60%, something crazy horrible, right? Like, it's like, how do I approach that in a manner of like, this needs to get fixed or I must see improvement? Otherwise, like you're probably not going to see a side of me you want to see, like, because I know it's failing. And if it continues to stay this way, like you have to figure it out. I can't go out there and babysit you and watch you the entire day and show you where all the waste is. Only you know where the waste is. I don't have time for that. All I can see is the numbers and the fact that it's underperforming right now. And so in a very nice but professional, respectful way, like I'm wondering, like, I don't know, has Mike ever had to have like a hard conversation? Like, and that might not even be really a hard conversation. That just might be a direct, like, hey, Corey, this is failing right here. I must see, like, this must go up next week. Like, what does that approach conversation look like in a nice way, but stern?
I would not give you a cue from Mike. Mike is he's very gentle about that kind of stuff. And so I would give you a cue from Lee. From Lee, because he's a very black and white. He's a numbers guy. He is all data, all analytics, all prep. And so this is like, I'm channeling my inner Lee. It's a Lee-ism. We call them Lee-isms. Is that you take the numbers, present it to somebody and say, here's the numbers. What does that look like to you? Does it look good or bad? And if they don't know that it's bad, that's part of the problem. If they do know it's bad, you say, okay, great. What are you going to do to change it? Oh, what if I do this? And then you like walk them through like, okay, this thing you're thinking isn't going to work. This thing you're thinking isn't. Why haven't we done that yet? You see, and it's like just kind of walking them through learning what they're doing wrong. And I've had that as well. As what my version of it is, and I do get this from Mike, is I try to plan things out a pretty, like if I'm going to make, if, you know, I try to plan my steps. And so if I'm going to make a choice, I'm going to like take the whole thing and like, here's everything I think about this, break it open, just disassemble it, Mike. And because like I said, he's always firing on all cylinders. He looks at it and is like, this won't work, that won't work, that won't work, that won't work. I like this, but is it worth your time? Because it's structured around all the rest of this stuff and that stuff isn't. And so it's like when, at least with us, it's like when we systematize everything, like with an Augusta, when you try to expand the systems, you have a very solid kind of basing to compare it to. And it's like, how well does it fit that? How replicatable is it? And then more often than not, it's a matter of like, oh, what's the, are you a fan of Alex Hormozy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Something Alex has been talking about recently is leverage. He's been talking about leverage a lot. And it's like, how much return do you get correlated to the amount of effort you're putting in? And so you want to put in as little effort as possible to get the most return. And it's usually about something like that. Is like, I want to do something new, or I want to take the business in this direction. Or what if we market really hard towards mulch installs because I've got extra mulch or something like that. And he's like, is it worth your time? Are you getting a lot? Do we stand to get a lot out of this? That's how my ideas are managed, I would say, because I try to come up with a lot of solutions to things. And I think I probably overthink things a little bit too much. But when it comes to addressing like real problems, and I do this with my staff because like Lee has done it with me. It's like, here's the numbers, like close ratio. I had an estimator through Spring Rush. We tried something new. We hired somebody without any lawn care landscaping experience to start up, become a salesman. And we offered him like, here's a career path and this kind of that stuff. Let's work this out and see if this works. It didn't work out. Towards the end, it ended well, but towards the end, it just like the sheer volume of it, the sheer scale of a Spring Rush, really the severity of being involved with business and having responsibility in business when it's an industry like ours is in Spring Rush, you've got to handle more weight than your shoulders can bear. And you've got to do it until it's no longer on your shoulders. And we brought somebody in who wasn't committed to that kind of vision, and that was too much work for them. But at the end of it, it's like close ratio is low. I wasn't the one doing sales anymore, so it's not like I'm the one responsible for the closing. However, I'm responsible for the person who is closing. And so what do I need to do? And like Lee's like, here's the numbers. What are we going to do to solve this problem? Because he's not, doing this, and this is not going right. And like these things are good, but this isn't right. And so we kind of walked through it, and he taught me like all kind of stuff about that. It's still, like I said, it still didn't work out, and that was all fine and good. But that's kind of the framework that we go through for solving problems of that kind.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think my biggest thing that I pulled out of that was like, I think I have so much knowledge in my brain, but like they don't know what I know, right? The team member doesn't know that like, a 50 to 60% efficiency score is horrible. And it's like, I think I'm failing on educating on what the boundaries and parameters are. And it's like, so the first thing you said was when you show him the numbers, you say, hey, what do you think about this? Do you think it's going well or good, bad, or great? And if they're like, I don't know, then it's like, well, that's our problem. Like they don't even know that this number is bad, let alone how to fix it, which obviously is what we're there for. So I think that's really good. I think I need to reflect and look internally of like what I need to do to make sure that they understand where those boundaries are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a little difficult, right? Because like obviously we have a new location, the route density is not great. It is a little bit further of a drive. It's like a 25-30 minute drive because we're expanding to a different territory. So like the efficiency obviously isn't going to be as great as the main location, right? That's doing like 90% efficiency right now, which is great. No, that's really good. That's really good. I wanted to, so you brought up the estimator portion. I wanted to kind of pick your brain and figure out like what your structure and role looks like, right? Like obviously you're managing 12 people pretty effectively. You just raised prices. and you're doing an outstanding job, which is amazing. I'd love to like pick your brain at like tactical ways how to manage 12 people, because that's a whole other book we could talk about.
Oh yeah.
Like, are you the full estimator now? Like, what does your role look like? Because you're a complete non-producing revenue employee, right? Like, you're not going out in the field and producing. What are those tasks that you're focused on each day? Is it like, okay, you're going out and doing the estimates? Are you the one doing the upsells? Like, and then outside of that, between working with Command Center, like, I mean, I'm sure you're probably running broken equipment back and forth, but like, what does your day-to-day look like, at $1 million with that many?
I'd say the thing that holds all of this together, and this is a skill I'm still building. I definitely would say that it's very hard to sustain something past $1 million in revenue when you are on your own. But especially like for me, I have the command center. I always point over there because they're that direction. They handle a lot of my administrative tasks. So they'll submit a ticket to me, and it'll be, hey, this person called in, the crew didn't do this thing, or some invoice question, or they want to be told about whatever it is. And so I just, as fast as I can get the task done, I just write a very simple response. I'm like, do this, do that, and this. And they are trained so that like they will follow the instruction to the word and be done. And so I just give them the instructions to the word: contact client, inform apology. We will be back Monday, 50% their invoice, inform client, ask if they wanted what they wanted to accept an estimate we sent them or whatever. And so I would say that it's several different roles. I do all of the estimating. And so what I try to do is compact it, because what I've ended up having happen, and this is my most current recent issue, is that I will get timed estimates, in-person meetings with people at very different times of day. And because we service the entirety of our county, not just the city of Bellingham, I could have an appointment at 11 in Blaine, which is on the border of the state, and then another appointment 25, 35, 45 minutes away at 12. So like I have to get this appointment done in time so that I can meet that one. And then after that appointment over there, I got a 1 o'clock right back in the same city. And so it's just like all this back. And so the drive time, the desync, I'm stepping out of my hustle mindset and whatnot. It's very disorienting. What I'm working on is compartmentalizing that so that when I condense these sales, I close all of them as fast as humanly possible. Like I will call them every single day after that initial estimate until they either say yes or no, so that I don't have to like worry about them very much. And I can compact all of that down into one space. If I close all of those, I can be a little bit more lenient on my scheduling of in-person meetings the next period, and then I can lighten that task and focus on another big one. And so what I try to do is get in pretty early. I wake up at 5:10 nowadays so that I can get into my office at 6:50. The team starts at 7:50, and so I try to get a bunch of stuff done in the morning, try to get out for meetings later in the afternoon, and then when I get back, it's kind of like, there's sales, admin, and operations. And so I try to do all my admin in the morning, do my sales in the afternoon, and then when I get back at the end of the day, I do my operations. I interact with the team. I tell them, this is what you did wrong, or you should have told me about this, or you did great today, stuff like that. If that answers some of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I like that where, if Command Center has a question or something, they'll just submit a ticket, right? Like, and be like, hey, how do you want me to handle this? I think what we have been finding challenging in our business is like our office or manager, like sometimes like the communication back and forth. It's like, hey, can you call me on this question or something like that? But like, you're busy. Our GMs are very busy. And so like a simple voice chat or text can be a lot quicker instead of like, hey, let me jump on a 10 or 15 minute phone call to figure out this problem. Right? It's like we can just ask one question in a voice chat, get one response, check it off, move on, and not get like bogged down with like this overlap of like calls back and forth. Or if we do need to do a call, it's like what we're going to be probably shifting to is like, hey, every day at 2:30 in the afternoon, we're going to do a 10 to 15 minute call. That's where you can ask all the questions, and we'll just get everything done in that segment. Now, obviously, if you have questions throughout the day, sure, send a text. But like if you have bigger questions of like how to handle bigger stuff, we could do it at a set time each day. That way neither of us are getting like bogged down with like the phone call here and there and having to call back and stuff like that, because you're busy doing estimates, right? And managing the crews and stuff like that.
Yeah, for me, it's a lot with the crew. In my opinion, I think that accountability is a muscle that you have to build. You have to build the muscle that pulls you for, okay, like there's a problem, ask, Will, or like there's a problem, just call. Just, hey, here's what it is. You tell me what to do. It's like, it is a muscle to go this way and like, okay, I'm gonna force my brain to think about solving this without somebody else's involvement. So for me, I'm still building that muscle with my team. I have a lot of people who are inexperienced and new, both to like profession and landscaping as a whole. So when they have a labor related issue, it's like, hey, my wheelbarrow, like the wheel fell off. Realistically, put it back on and then retighten the bolt that held it. But it's like for them, it's like, oh, something went wrong. I don't know what I'm doing. Somebody else solved the problem. And so when somebody calls, I will not answer it. It's not like I don't want to help them, but if they're going to call me, I need them to understand that is reserved for emergencies. When that happens, it's like kind of like boy cried wolf. Somebody's calling me for something small and menial every time, and then I don't pick up and they don't text me. I don't know what's going on, but I'm in the middle of something. I'm in the middle of talking to a client and my phone's exploding. And so what I teach my crew is like, if you're going to call me, you need my help immediately so that I can stop what I'm doing and already know that this is worth the time. Yeah, with Command Center, it's all tickets. We have two different kind of communication channels. We communicate through Copilot. They submit tickets there. And then when there's a more like, hey, Corey, I don't really know how you'd want me to solve this problem for you, they'll shoot me a message in what's called Connect Team. But we really almost never use that anymore because Copilot's so efficient with submitting tickets. Yeah, communication is like, I keep it very streamlined. I try to give my crew as much accountability as possible. And it's starting to get to the point where they've been here just long enough, 3-5 months, where when they ask me small questions, I see the notification, but I just don't open it because I know they'll solve the problem. It's like, hey, Corey, I don't have the code for this gate. Can you tell me for like an HOA or something? And it's like, I know in my head, if they open the visor, the gate codes are on the sun visor in the truck. And so the person who's with them should know that. They'll figure it out. And they do every time.
Yeah, dude, that's amazing. I need to give that, like, I'm going to have Larissa watch that snippet or at least mention it to her, like how you handle that, because I feel like what she has communicated to me is she feels guilty sometimes not answering that call from her team. Like, you want to be there for them, you want to support them, but there's a balance. There's like, hey, you can't call me for every little thing, because when you have 12 people, dude, like and you got new team members in the spring rush calling you about simple things. Hey, what do I do when the dog's in the backyard? It's like, come on, man, check the SOP checklist of that we went over in orientation. It has all. What do you do when the dog is there? What do you do in the locked gate? What do you do if the sprinklers are still running? Like, you tell me. Don't you know what I mean? And so, we try to build those systems and stuff like that. But man, I like that. I think I might ask her if that's something that she may want to implement, of like, guys, you're gonna call me if it's an emergency. If it's like don't expect me to answer because I'm doing a job too. Otherwise, I'll be working 12-14 hour days if I have to answer all these calls and stuff like that. So for the tickets, are you guys just using like to-dos on Copilot? Okay.
They send me a to-do. And we systematize the titling of it so that I know if it's important. Because on the schedule board, and I guess on the job description, so like if you look at the dispatch board, it just says the service name and then the title of the service and what the service is and the address. On either of those, it's like, I don't know what it is when I've got 30 of them, and I have like 30 different little tickets to deal with usually every day. It'll be labeled as just FYI, and when I open it up, it's so-and-so has switched to biweekly, or so-and-so has asked that we pause until next spring or something like that. So great. When it's an FYI and I'm on fire, I don't need to open it. I will open the things that are titled action needed, command center call or something like that, where somebody's letting me know like, hey, here's something that happened. Somebody called into the business. This is genuinely important. And it's all about, the compartmentalizing of everything. And so for me, I compartmentalize my time to handle that stuff. And then that stuff is compartmentalized. So yes, there's, 1, 2, and then 3. So like 2 is the biggest of admin tasks. I have, 3 hours today to get them done. I'm going to deal with the first part that's most important. And then the last part, those are, like all FYIs. I'm going to leave that. I'm going to handle the big block. Or if I have no time, I'll handle these 2 things, crunch my sales down for the day so that at the end of the day, when the crew gets back, because I need to be here, I'd love to share some of my thoughts on that. I think team culture building is very incremental. It's a very incremental build up with some fireworks. There's fireworks that have to go off, but then after that, it's just a little bit of a sizzle that keeps things warm. But anyways, I need to be here for that interaction. And so while they're here, I talk with them a little bit, and then, hey guys, I've got work I need to do. Or even when somebody's reaching out to me for help, it's like, hey, here's what I think you should do. If I don't get back to you because this is like a multifaceted problem, I trust your judgment. Deal with it. I'm in the middle of something. I can't help you right now. I need to take care of this thing. And that always works. It works every time. They will solve if you tell somebody you can solve the problem, and they can, they will. They certainly will. At least in my opinion. I've seen a lot of success with that. Yeah, it's all about like compartmentalizing all of that. And then, so there's not another thought I had, but yeah, there you go.
No, dude, that's so good. Like, that's such great information. So managing like 12 people, I think I watched a podcast that you did with Liz, and
Yeah.
you guys were talking about how in the mornings it can get crazy, right? You've got 12 guys coming in, you're trying to get you already got their route set up, you're trying to get them out. And Larissa and I, we were just talking about like what if we offset some of the start times? Because like it's like a bull rush. All these people come in at one time, and it's like, how do you get them all out in an effective, efficient way? And one of the things that you said in there was like, you tell the crews, like, guys, text me if you have a question, chat me on WhatsApp, or do something outside of like standing in line or like trying to talk to me when I'm in a one-on-one with an employee that I need to have a conversation with that morning. Like what are some like other maybe like important ways to effectively, dude, 12 people is a lot of people. Like that's insane. You are doing something extraordinary that many people can't do. Dude, some people can't even manage 4 people.
Oh, I'll tell you, it's a skill. You build it, and I just jumped right into it. And so if you jump in and you think quitting isn't an option for everybody watching, it's like, I don't know if I could manage one person. You can, but you got to manage yourself. Treat yourself like an employee, and then build from there. Like everybody can lead other people. But that's side advice because I'm really passionate about this. If you could believe it, and we talked about this at conference before, it was like I was not as good with the numbers as I am now. I was just kind of like, we're gonna do this and that and this and that and that, and it's like we did like 1.1, maybe we'll do 1.5 this year, and then maybe next year we'll do 2 million, maybe even 2.5 or 3. I had no idea what I was talking about, man. I was just throwing numbers out like, I'll just work 18 hours a day and do that. No. And so we tried to set ourselves up to do that this year. We hired 30. We had 30 people ready March 1st. And then I staggered their starting. I didn't get all of them on. We just didn't have the workflow this year. Lead flow is really down for us. We did grow recurring 2.8 times in size, which was awesome. We went from 89 to 250 before our price increase. After that, we went to 280. So that was pretty sick. We had the people for that amount of work. We had 20 at the most. And so what I would say is that the reason I preface all of that is that this tactic works with 12, and it works with 1, and it works with potentially up to 30. I didn't get all 30 to work at the same time, but here's what it is. I have noticed that it's okay for people to all start at the same time, as long as a few things are in place. Is that number one, they already know what they need to do. The issue that I was addressing was people would come in and they, exactly as you said, they want to get in line. It's like, hey, so what am I doing today? Or, hey, I went to this house last time and like there was this area, or like whatever it is. And so like they get in line. I'm sure the questions are valid. Most of the time, sometimes it's just like, hey man, take some ownership of this. Just go sharpen the blades. Like the blades are dull, sharpen them. We have a grinder. You've been trained how to do it. People stand in line and they don't get their trucks ready or all of their equipment ready until after they've had their question answered. So they'll be standing around for like 5 or 8 minutes waiting for me to get to, hey, there's no string in my truck. Okay, did you check the container that has string in it? So I just tell them like, don't come in and ask me questions, because also like I'm going through my email, I'm going through tickets because people will try to cancel last minute and I need to pause or cancel for the day. I need to pause their service last minute, or somebody's called in exploding because we destroyed a part of their property or we missed an area. Well, the person who did it needs to go back to deal with that, but I can't get to that until the line is gone. And so I've just told them, like, if you need something, text me about it, go get your truck ready. I will process everybody's things as I get to them. And if it is important for me to answer before you leave today, come back into the office and say like, hey, I sent you the text. Are you able to get to me right now? Because sometimes it's like somebody will have a really important issue and they have to wait behind 3 people who want time off in August or December. It's like, hey, Corey, can I have Christmas off? Okay. Can I have Christmas off? Okay. My engine's on fire, So that is good. That's number one, is that giving them that kind of expectation of like, this is how we communicate. And then number 2, I would say, is when they go out, because we have a yard, I know a lot of people work out of like storage facilities, which I think is so cool. But we have a yard of our own, and so we have containers, and we have to pull our trucks up to them. I have to entrust that they don't like stand around and chat. all morning. And they know that like the expectation is that they go out and get the work done. And I haven't had to have any difficult conversations about like, hey, you guys aren't showing up to work. You're showing up to, have a good time. And like, I want them to enjoy the job, but like, we're here to get our work done. And when you stand around at the office for 20, 25 minutes on P for P, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You pair that with somebody who's a low performer, for example, earlier. It's like somebody who's not hitting budgeted hours. Well, there you go. There's usually other indicators. It's like they're hanging out at shop for 25 minutes in the morning and then hanging out for another 25 at the end of the day. They're wasting, an hour or so every day chatting. It's like they're not focused on, there's that part of it. I have noticed that I do have a constraint at about 18 people is that just the sheer volume of vehicles can't get close enough to the container. But I think that can be remedied by parking the trucks themselves. Cause so if you look at this building is a solid square. The trucks are all over here and then they have to drive that way about 300 feet to the containers. But the containers are, they're normal storage containers. They're only like 8 feet, 10 feet wide. And so you have to park all the trucks down the road to get your mowers out of them and your equipment. But I think just with a different shop setup, you could handle the volume of 30 people more or less fine. For us, we can't do that at that size because we have one container for all power tools, treatment related stuff, hedge trimmers, metal heads, all that kind of stuff, shovels, project work, and ladders. And so you can't have 3, 4, 10 people pulling a ladder out of a container at the same time. They do have to go one by one. I just think at that point, it's a matter of optimizing for your new scale, but at least until like 18, 20 people, I think everybody can start at the same time. They just have to show up focused on working. Like the people that I have are starting to show up like 45 minutes before start time. It's good. Like they're getting in before me sometimes. It's kind of like, I feel bad because like, I'm not going to show up after my employees. So now I have to come in earlier. And so they come in earlier because, I'm so inspired. Corey's coming. Stop it. Let me sleep.
Yeah. And then you're like the last one out too, most of the days. Right. So it's like, dude, you're working 12, 14 hours. It's like, there comes a point where it's like, man, there is some kind of balance, right? Obviously spring rush, that's normal, but hopefully as we transition to more of the cooler season and more of normalcy in the industry, you're able to, balance that a little bit better. But yeah, we have the same thing where we have team members that get there. Dude, there's guys that get there before us. And yeah, as a good leader, we're like, man, we need to get there before, so that's awesome, man. But dude, no, you are absolutely crushing it over there. You're at the Bellingham location and I love it, man. I could honestly go on and on this podcast, but nah, man, this was fun. I really appreciate you and your time coming on with us. And I think it's going to help a lot of great people. You have such a good mindset on leadership and like culture and learning like that. I think will move you further than so many people, on having that passion for, just learning and things like that. So I guess to wrap this up, Corey, so do you have any, like, maybe obviously you're big on learning. Do you have any audiobooks or maybe, I know you mentioned Alex Hormozy, but like any kind of podcasts, content that you listen to that like has really helped you become an effective leader or just really understand the business better?
I would say two things is that currently I'm going through a lot of Alex Hormozy stuff and like he's doing like 25-hour work days somehow. I don't know how he's putting out so much content lately, but that's been helping me level up a lot in the short term. A lot of his talking about, focus. He's really good at quantifying intangible skills like focus and leverage. Listening to him talk about that and having him give this kind of framework of use like this framework to determine focus and like just say no to everything except what you want to get done. Like that's a really big unlock for me in the short term. But I'd say in general, like for both of us and for anybody watching, just like be consistent with learning. I'm not necessarily learning this skill or this bit of knowledge from this particular material, but I'm learning it from every single thing I see. Like everywhere I look in the world, I keep seeing the same lesson, whether it's like I'm exposed to the heat of the sun or I'm like learning from Mike Andes, whatever it is, it's just stay consistent, show up every single day and do some effort on it. And so like with studying, just study something every day. And when you're done with everything, but at the end of your day, even if you're working 12, 14-hour days in the spring rush, before you leave your office, just study something. And if your brain can't handle it, don't do it there. Go do something, rest your brain. Because I've realized like the willingness to work hard and have like the business succeed through spring rush doesn't always match like the brain's capacity for the amount of information that has to go through it. And that was a huge problem for me going through spring rush. Is like I'd be sitting here at my desk like, come on, like write this email, and like I couldn't get my body to do it. So like take some like rest. Like that's one big thing for me. But like being consistent and studying something every day. Alex Hormozi's videos are great. They're half an hour. There's a lot of dense information in them. You can rewatch them multiple times. Watch something until you really feel like you've understood it, and then watch it again after a week and see if you learn something new. And just, it's really easy to do the same thing, the same half-hour video 4 or 5 times, but the amount of information you'll get from it is crazy. So spend a week, just work hard every day for just a little bit of time, and you will be amazed at how much you grow. So amazing. I've grown a lot recently. Like that's a big unlock for me. It's just the consistency of study.
Yeah. Well, even just from, talking to you from Landscape Summit, dude, you've grown so much even from then. And so I'm excited for you and what the future holds. I know you have Bellingham location in good hands out there. So man, I really appreciate you coming on. And last thing, if anybody has maybe questions for you or just maybe wants to reach out, because again, you're helpful. And that's the whole, dude, that's why I love Augusta Nation. Like everybody in it is like, we're all trying to help each other. Right. Like, and help other people, and iron sharpens iron. And so, I love it. But if anybody has questions for you or wants to reach out, what is a good way to reach you?
You catch me on Facebook. I'm in your Facebook group. I think it's yours, Corey Williams. I have my mustache again. I didn't have it for a while, so you'll recognize me in my picture. Otherwise, I can give you my email. You can put it in the comments, and people can shoot me an email to my secondary one and just ask me any questions. I'm happy to answer questions. I don't know how other markets are, but like here in Whatcom County and within Augusta Lawn Care Services, we don't have competitors. There's plenty of other companies in our area, but like I send them clients, they send me clients. Like it's a great thing, and a rising tide floats all boats. And so when that water is made out of pure positivity, everybody's mood and life goes up. So that's my motto in the industry.
Yeah, I love it, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I definitely appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, we'll see ya.